Good afternoon. I wanted to give you a quick video discussing your fiscal policy paper. I know there have been some questions on that, and I want to make it as clear as possible on what is expected and what you should include in your paper, and also what areas or where you can begin to start doing your research. So in terms of the fiscal issues, or some examples of fiscal issues, really that is something that you should be able to think about on your own in terms of something that may be plaguing the city or county that you are considering to write about. But some basic examples, or some examples that have been done in the past by previous students, have centered around pensions and how that cost escalation has increasingly shown it as a way to adversely impact local governments, especially in terms of delivering services. And in terms of pensions, the issue of unfunded mandates by state government has particularly been an important issue that has plagued local governments. Also, the rising healthcare cost of local government employees, which in many ways is more problematic than the pension issue, which is interesting because pensions get a lot of notoriety, but if you look at the data and the research, you'll see that the cost of healthcare is increasing to such an extent and to such a degree that it is more problematic than the actual pension costs. But both of these are topics that can be problematic and are certainly fiscal issues for a local government to consider. Another area that a lot of students tend to write about is education, and the fact that California is one of the lowest funded, or the California funds education, higher education, amongst the lowest states in the country, really is seen adversely in terms of preparing students for college, giving them all the necessary resources. There tends to be a higher dropout rate in California as compared to other states, and obviously you can see how that state issue impacts local governments, and what that can potentially do to a local government when a number of potential employees, in terms of students, either aren't ready for college, so they don't go that route. They enter the job force, and they may be more inclined to find jobs that aren't as technically driven or computer driven, and have to really rely on other sources of income. So that is also another area that you may want to focus on. And also, relatedly, is unemployment. How that the rise or the increased rate of unemployment over the last several years. Now, while unemployment has certainly declined since 2 years ago, that number is still problematic for local governments, because the goal for many local governments and localities in general is to provide sustainable living for residents, to find adequate employment, and as such we see that the unemployment number, as it has risen, has been problematic for local governments as well. So in terms of resources, where you may want to first look to begin your research on this project, the first place that I would start is the CAFR report of the city or the county that you're looking for, and you want to find the most recent report, the most recent financial report, and then go backwards a couple of years. And when you look at the CAFR, you're really looking at overall revenues and expenditures, so you don't necessarily have to go into depth and look at every line item and every page of the CAFR, but you want to look at the general revenues and expenditures that are seen throughout that municipality or that local government, that county. You also may want to look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics to see if you're going to look at unemployment, just to get some background on that. But for the most part, I think you can rely in large degree on news reports, news articles, and then get an idea of the sense of what is going on in the city that you choose to write about. Because certainly some of the issues that may face a city like Claremont, California, are not going to be the same issues that may face a city like Rialto, for example. So use your research skills to find out what is actually occurring in that city or that county. Now also, under the course information folder in Blackboard, you'll find an example of a fiscal policy report from a previous student. So take a look at that and see how it was constructed. Actually, that was I believe that was done last quarter or last spring. So take a look at that and how that was constructed. And it really doesn't have to be much more than that. I think this exercise will allow you to certainly demonstrate your critical thinking skills, but also to give you a lot of flexibility in terms of thinking about a policy issue, a fiscal policy issue, and how to address that issue. What needs to be done, what initiatives need to take place in order for the city to overcome that particular issue. So, for example, if you choose to talk about healthcare costs or rising healthcare costs in San Bernardino, your initiative should then be how to meet that at the pass, or how to address the rising healthcare costs in San Bernardino so that it isn't seen as a fiscal policy, or at least an adverse fiscal policy issue in years to come. All right, so you'll have creativity in regards to that. Now, you also should be concerned or address how your initiative will improve that community based on the problem that you've identified. So you identify an issue, and then you develop an initiative or a couple of initiatives to address that particular problem that you see. Now, in terms of the Congressional Budget Office report and the National Commission on Fiscal Responsibilities report, those reports simply serve as a backdrop and give you some information on what they see as problematic, or what they see as federal issues that can impact states and local governments going forward. So you should take a look at those reports a little bit more closely and in more detail to get a sense of what is happening on the national front, and then how that impacts the local governments. And also the Palmer and Penner article discussed this issue in a little bit more detail. So again, if you do have questions as you go forward, hopefully this brief video will give you a little bit better understanding, and you'll be able to dive right into your report. Now, in terms of some other issues with this particular report, is that I want you to look at the ethical considerations of the initiatives that you propose. Now, we had a discussion on ethics in Module 1, so you can find some more information there if you want to support your arguments in terms of addressing the ethical considerations. And also, in terms of assessing financial conditions, we looked at that. I believe that was Module 2. So refer back to previous modules and PowerPoints to get a sense of how you address the ethical considerations, and also how you assess financial conditions for your report. And again, if you do have questions, please feel free to email me or give me a call, and I can certainly help walk you through the process a little bit more. And again, I do have office hours on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. All right, thank you.